The Earth's vitality has revived, but this is not really the story of the Earth's spiritual revival, but rather a story of a wandering universe. Keywords of the novel. Abandoning the universe without pop-ups, abandoning the universe. Download the complete set of TXT, and read the latest chapters of Abandoning the Universe. Chapter 1. Wedge. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1 Wedge, Blue Cloth, do you think the sky will still turn blue? Lan Xiaobu, did your previous promise of marrying me still count? Xiaobu, I'm breathing so tired. Xiaobu, I'm sorry, I have to leave first. Xiaobu. That's not love, it's just a habit of helping each other. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. My name is Lan Xiaobu. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2 My name is Lan Xiaobu. Boom. A mine exploded in the air, turning into several blue arcs of light that bombarded the bare soil slope, tearing the only tree with a bowl-shaped mouth in half at the top of the slope. Lan Xiaobu suddenly sat up, staring blankly at the remaining tree only a few meters away from him. His first feeling was not that he had narrowly escaped death, but rather that he was lost. Thunder is still roaring, but the sound has gradually become distant. Lan Xiaobu looked up at the distant sky, which was a gray and hazy area. Some tall buildings were only vaguely outlined in Lan Xiaobu's eyes at this moment. Jiu. An unknown bird let out a mournful cry, brushing past Blue Little Boo's hazy gaze and disappearing into the deep outline of the gray steel and cement. Just as Lan Xiaobu felt something was wrong, his head began to ache violently, making him unable to continue thinking. Bang! It seemed as if the ground beneath my feet had been hit by something, and it trembled violently. Before he could fully awaken, Lan Xiaobu instinctively found a place to lie down, and the next moment, he stared blankly into the distance. In the gray sky, white light columns appeared one after another. These white light columns did not fall from the sky, but rose from the ground, covering his vision. Even the polluted gray sky became bright. Earthquake. No, this scene is so familiar. It happened once, Blue Little Boo. A crisp and urgent cry followed a slender figure running towards the bottom of the mountain slope. When Lan Xiaobu saw clearly the newcomer's delicate face, he instinctively blurted out, Su Xian. As the girl in a light yellow dress approached, Lan Xiaobu's memory gradually became clear, and the intense pain in her head also eased a lot. Su Xian, his wife, but how many years ago was that? By the way, this is Haiyang Medical University. My name is Lan Xiaobu and I am in my senior year. Without waiting for Lan Xiaobu to continue thinking, Su Xian had already stood in front of him and said, Lan Xiaobu, was it an earthquake just now? But how could an earthquake have a beam of light? Lan Xiaobu suddenly remembered that the white beam of light had long disappeared, and the sky had once again returned to a gray and hazy state. Lan Xiaobu was still shocked by the previous scene and Su Xian's sudden appearance, and did not recover for a moment. Su Xian didn't seem to care about Lan Xiaobu's abnormality and continued, it's okay if you're okay. With that little thing, your self-esteem is a bit too strong. Let's go back together. At this moment, Lan Xiaobu had already regained his composure. He stood up again, casually patted the dust on his body, and then smiled and said, Xian, thank you for worrying about me. I'm really okay, I didn't care about that anymore. I'm just here to experience the ups and downs of my life. Don't worry, you go back first, I'll sit for a while. Hee, you have to remember that you are only 18 years old. You are currently in senior year because you are taking the Haiyang Medical University youth class. So let's forget about those who understand the vicissitudes of life. Also, after only a day's absence, you have become slippery-tongued. Xian is not what you call. Since you want to understand life, you should slowly understand it. I'll leave first. Su Xian saw from Lan Xiaobu's expression and tone that he was really okay, her worries are somewhat unnecessary. Just this look. Su Xian shook his head hard. Lan Xiaobu changed his major after being admitted to the youth class, and now he is the youngest student in the class. How could he have a look of vicissitudes in his eyes? She must feel wrong. Lan Xiaobu stood still, didn't he call Sun Xian? He has been shouting for 20 years. He sighed in his heart and just waved his hand. It's okay, you go, I'm doing very well. Looking at Lan Xiaobu's appearance, Su Sun suddenly smiled and said, should I bring you a paper cup filled with water? You can shake your hands and sit down while saying it's okay. Do you have it? If so, I can learn from the Star Lord. Lan Xiaobu chuckled. With your head, it seems like you're really okay. Goodbye. Su Sun turned around and took a few steps before suddenly turning back. Lan Xiaobu, do you think the sky will still turn blue? Lan Xiaobu looked up at the gray sky and smiled brightly. If one day I can come back, I will definitely make the sky blue. Su Sun was taken aback for a moment and then said, I won't tell you anymore. You can write poetry slowly. After speaking this time, Su Sun quickly left. It can be seen that the vibration on the ground and the anomaly of the light column just now did not catch Su Sun's attention, and the words he asked Lan Xiaobu just now were just casual. Lan Xiaobu's answer made her inexplicable, thinking that this guy was pretending to be mysterious. As Su Sun's figure gradually faded away, the smile on Lan Xiaobu's face slowly disappeared. Looking up at the still gray sky, Blue Little Boo couldn't understand why he suddenly returned to 21 years ago. Because it was his birthday, and it was also this day that he fell completely in love with Su Xian. But he knew very well in his heart that in this life, he and Su Sun would never be husband and wife again. The gray sky above is not due to occasional fog or darkness, but because the entire earth is now polluted by industrial waste gas. Even in the bright sun, the sky still carries a dull and lifeless gray. Once, Lan Xiaobu thought this was the most terrifying thing, and he even regretted studying medicine. He hoped to learn related disciplines that could change the pollution of the earth and gradually improve it. Later, Lan Xiaobu realized that this was not the most terrifying thing. The most terrifying thing was the nuclear war. 17 years later, after that nuclear war, humanity became enslaved, the earth tended to be destroyed, and everything would lead to an endless abyss with no future. Is the air now polluted by industry? More than a decade later, this was a luxury item, and at that time, it was all contaminated with nuclear air. A scene he will never forget, when he watched Su Sun with his mouth open, lying on the nuclear-contaminated ruins, tears streaming down his face and looking at him in despair, but he could only rely on his mouth shape to know that Su Sun's last sentence before leaving was, I'm sorry, I have to leave first. He understood in his heart why Su Sun had to say sorry to him. It was because Su Sun's marriage to him did not truly mean that he had fallen in love with him. Even though Su Sun died in the ruins of nuclear pollution, he had never fallen in love with him, Lan Xiaobu. Saying sorry, it was his Blue Xiaobu who transformed his life into love and gave it to her. Su Xian Su Sun had never fallen in love with him before his death, so she felt sorry for Blue Xiaobu. Love is not something that can be given just because you want it, let alone something that can be obtained with effort. Flashing thunder once again pierced through the hazy sky, and after a while, the dull sound of thunder came through. The last scene of his past life appeared before his eyes, which was when he was sunk into the sea. After Su Sun left, he was in a daze and was forcibly dragged away to see a person with a considerable background. He had no mood and directly said that he couldn't cure it. Lan Xiaobu clenched his fist and looked at the gray sky in the distance, saying word by word, I will never allow. In this life, he will never allow nuclear war on Earth to happen again, nor will he allow Su Sun to spend that difficult life with him. He must learn to let go. This nuclear war can be avoided because it is not a war between countries on Earth, but a war on Earth to prevent foreign invaders. Unfortunately, in the face of outsiders, even if a nuclear war is launched, the Earth still cannot escape the fate of being enslaved by outsiders. Lan Xiaobu took a deep breath and looked through the gray city polluted by industry. Although he couldn't see anything clearly, he knew in his heart that to stop global nuclear war, he had to take action now. The last time I opened a new book was 18 years ago, almost 3 years ago. Time flies too fast. Today, I have opened another new book. The new book has been released, please recommend and collect it. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Flying Saucers Landing on Earth. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3 Flying Saucers Landing on Earth. In one more year, the vitality of the Earth's heaven and earth will change, and at that time, the cultivation of ancient martial arts will no longer be a legend. Not to mention various other martial arts techniques, even the I Ching Jing can be practiced. Although the I Ching Jing is claimed by novelists to be the supreme martial art of Shaolin, in fact, it has been passed down for so many years and is seen by people as just a form of health preservation. But 1 year later, the I Ching Jing is no longer a health-preserving technique, but a supreme technique that can truly cultivate internal qi. Ordinary people can use the I Ching Jing to cultivate internal qi, and then rely on internal qi support to cultivate various martial arts techniques. So a year later, various online martial arts secrets, whether real or fake, will disappear overnight. If you download it in advance, it's luck. If you don't download it, you can only search for your school or top martial arts academy. As for the top-notch technique of I Ching Jing, anyone who dares to cultivate it, as long as it is discovered, it is a dead word. Nowadays, it is absolutely ridiculous and unbelievable for a student to abandon their studies and learn martial arts. 1 year later, this kind of thing has become commonplace. This overturned the changes of the times simply because an intelligent flying saucer crossed the atmosphere from outer space and landed in a corner of the Earth. This UFO is the source of Earth's cultivation and also the cause of future nuclear wars on Earth. What good thing is on that UFO? Blue Little Boo doesn't even know where the UFO landed. The only thing that can be confirmed is that the UFO landed in a canyon in the Kunlun Mountains. After the UFO landed in the Kunlun Mountain Canyon, it was not immediately known. There is no data at all about UFOs crossing the atmosphere and falling onto Earth. Until a year later, the Earth's heaven and earth energy suddenly became strong, and many martial artists found that the half-true and half-false internal energy had actually been cultivated, not just by one person. This discovery is like dropping a bomb in a calm lake, causing countless people to start practicing martial arts. This sudden change has also led the country to investigate. Soon everyone discovered that the closer you get to Kunlun Mountain, the faster you can cultivate internal qi and practice martial arts. When various experts came to Kunlun Mountain to investigate, the global vitality of heaven and earth seemed to suddenly erupt. At this time, not only Kunlun Mountain, but also other places were practicing at a faster pace. After several months of investigation, some clues were finally found through the oral accounts of some herdsmen. Once there was a black line above Kunlun Mountain, as if a ravine had been dug up in the sky, and it eventually disappeared into the depths of Kunlun Mountain. There seemed to be a loud noise coming from the depths of Kunlun Mountain. No one doubted this news, because at that time the loud noise was not only heard by the herdsmen on the edge of Kunlun Mountain, but also in the distance. Moreover, some people also saw many white pillars of light. Not many people have seen the black line that appears on Kunlun Mountain, but too many have seen the white light column. Just a few people came to ask, and they all know about this. The Seismological Bureau also provided an explanation about the light column, saying it is a phenomenon of light tide refraction. Not many people are clear about what Guangzhou is. Based on these clues, people speculate that something may have fallen from outer space into the depths of the Kunlun Mountains, either as a meteorite or something else. The depths of Kunlun Mountains are not only steep, but many places are even forbidden areas for humans. To enter the depths of the Kunlun Mountains and investigate what exactly fell inside, it is natural to use technological means. The development of the situation is extremely eerie, as any aircraft, whether manned or unmanned, automatically loses information and falls into a certain range deep in the Kunlun Mountains. All electronic detectors, once they enter the depths of the Kunlun Mountains, will also turn into useless waste. After months of exploration, scientists were unable to draw any conclusions and could only attribute it to something that fell deep in the Kunlun Mountains. The existence of that thing can render all electronic devices, magnetic fields, and other technological means ineffective. Moreover, even satellites are unable to capture any trajectory of this thing falling towards the Kunlun Mountains. The only way is to send people on foot into the depths of the Kunlun Mountains to search for what is so magical. When it comes to such confidential issues, it is natural to block them. Even if the country begins to close down information and blockade Kunlun Mountains, more and more people are still secretly entering the depths of Kunlun Mountains to search for the treasure that changes the vitality of the earth. Not only domestic, but also some foreign ghosts and snakes have secretly come to Kunlun Mountain, hoping to sneak in and find the reason. However, all those who entered the depths of the Kunlun Mountains to search for this fallen thing from outer space eventually disappeared into the depths of the Kunlun Mountains, with no information sent out. Since the outbreak of Earth's vitality, in just 1 year, various ancient martial arts sects on Earth have rapidly emerged, and university schools have also established martial arts departments, with batches of geniuses emerging. The first genius in Jincheng, Shang Wei, broke through the limits of martial arts and was the first to break through the limits of the human body, entering the rumored realm of innate ancient martial arts. Faced with endless honors and pursuits, Shang Wei didn't care at all. Instead, he stepped into Kunlun Mountain alone, looking for something that would change the vitality of the Earth's heaven and earth. Like many people who entered the depths of Kunlun Mountain to explore, Shang Wei had no further information after entering Kunlun Mountain. More than 4 months have passed, just as many people feel regretful about this martial arts genius. A black flying saucer rises from the depths of Kunlun Mountains, then breaks free from the constraints of the earth and disappears into distant outer space. No one knows whether Shang Wei succeeded or failed, but people have guessed that the thing that once fell to Kunlun Mountain and changed the vitality of the Earth's heaven and earth should be that UFO. Because after the UFO left Kunlun Mountain, everything in Kunlun Mountain returned to normal. Electronic devices will no longer have problems, an aircraft can enter Kunlun Mountain again, and hiking into Kunlun Mountain will no longer result in inexplicable disappearance. It was very obvious that the UFO that fell from outer space was obtained by Shang Wei, and he used the UFO to leave the Earth. If it was really Shang Wei who got the UFO, then his character would not be very good. Where can this person improve their character by finding a UFO and rushing out of the Earth without saying a word? After all, Shang Wei's ability to quickly enter the innate world, apart from his talent, is definitely inseparable from the support of the country. Besides, without the permission of national resources, he cannot enter the Kunlun Mountains to search for UFOs. How did this guy repay? Get the UFO and leave the Earth without even calling out. It wasn't until 15 years later at the black UFO actually flew back to Earth, that everyone knew that the smart UFO was indeed obtained by Shang Wei. However, this time back, it was the beginning of Earth's misfortune. This UFO not only brought back many extraterrestrial powerhouses, but also brought back an extraterrestrial fleet. For the sake of his own life, Shang Wei returned to Earth with the invaders. As soon as these people arrived on Earth, they immediately began to slaughter and enslave the people on Earth. Cities were destroyed one after another, and countless innocent people were killed. In the eyes of these extraterrestrial powerhouses, all life on Earth is a lowly existence serving them. They want to build a huge smelter on Earth, refining something that no one knows. In order to drive away these foreign invaders, all sovereign countries on Earth joined forces to resist, thus ushering in the nuclear era on Earth. Xiaobu's thoughts seemed to wander in the air with the grey dust. When the thunder woke him up again, he had already made up his mind that he would never do such a thing again in this life. He must find the UFO before Shang Wei, whether it is destroyed or permanently disappeared with the UFO, and will never let extraterrestrial powers know about the existence of Earth. Secondly, I would like to request the support of monthly and recommended tickets. For friends who do not have a collection, please give it a collection. This book will definitely gain weight quickly. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Blue Little Boo's Plan, Adding Geng to the Alliance Leader's Love Uncle. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Blue Little Boo's Plan, Adding Geng to the Alliance Leader's Love Uncle. When Lan Xiaobu returned to the school gate, it was already the beginning of the night, and the dark night covered the gray sky, making people feel that everything was still beautiful. Today in the previous life, he remembered that the first thing he did when he returned was to inquire about everything about Su Xian. In this life, he will not do such foolish things again. Compared to Su Tsin's family background, Lan Xiaobu can't even count a weed on the roadside. The Su family in Haiyang is one of the most influential families in Haiyang, and the Yanhai group is part of the Su family in Haiyang. Su Tsin is also the legitimate granddaughter of the current head of the Su family, Su Shanhe. From any perspective, he and Su Tsin cannot come together. In fact, Su Tsin never had a happy day after marrying him. In his previous life, he knew it was impossible to come together with Su Tsin and still kept an eye on him. Although in Lan Xiaobu's view, he silently kept this kind of liking in the deepest part of his heart, it didn't take long for the entire class to know that he, as a mediocre, liked Su Tsin, the first beauty of Haiyang Medical University. The reason is that in his dreams, he said he wanted to marry Su Xian. Fortunately, all the classmates in the class were quite kind, and no one hit him with this matter. A graceful and graceful lady is a good match for a gentleman. Su Tsin is not the only one who likes him, Lan Xiaobu is just the most eager one. After Su Tsin found out about this, he just smiled and said that there were more people who liked her, and there was nothing more about having an extra blue cloth. It wasn't until something happened that Lan Xiaobu was hospitalized for her injury that she began to confront his thoughts. She then approached him specifically and told him in person that she only treated him as a good classmate and friend, asking him not to put his worries on her. She went to the small mountain to find him because she was the class monitor. If any classmate had emotions, she would also go and comfort them. Thinking of this, Lan Xiaobu, standing at the school gate, smiled self-deprecatingly. Until today, he still doesn't understand why one day after graduation, Su Tsin came specifically to find him and asked him, Lan Xiaobu, your words about marrying me before don't count. He thought Su Tsin was joking, but Su Tsin actually married him. What puzzled Lan Xiaobu even more was that after Su Tsin married him, she seemed to have no further relationship with the giant Su family. Until her death, there was no information from the Su family. She also did not explain why she left the Su family and married Lan Xiaobu in a small county town. Lan Xiaobu sighed, knowing in his heart that he had not truly fallen in love with Su Tsin until his death. He and Su Tsin, like countless impoverished couples, struggled at the very bottom to make a living and survive. Love is a luxurious thing. Xiaobu. A surprised voice rang out, followed by a boy wearing a brown jacket rushing out, slapping Blue Xiaobu's shoulder and shaking 7 or 8 crumpled 10 yuan bills. Today is your birthday, and I've decided to treat you to a big feast. Chief, why do you have the money to go to a restaurant? Lan Xiaobu was overjoyed when he saw the ordinary-looking big-headed classmate in front of him again. Lan Xiaobu has 2 best friends, one is the big head in front of him, and the other is called Geng Geng. Geng Geng was his childhood friend who grew up playing, and his studies were average. Later, he jumped the grade and was admitted to the youth class at Haiyang Medical University. Geng Geng also left Tingjiang with his parents, and there was no contact afterwards. The big head in front of him is called Qiu Zhan, while Lan Xiaobu usually calls him chieftain. Seeing that Lan Xiaobu was in a good mood, Qiu Zhan breathed a sigh of relief and patted Lan Xiaobu's shoulder hard. Xiaobu, don't worry about today's affairs. Shui Dongjian, that despicable person, is just as despicable as his name. If anyone bites you, you'll feel like you've been bitten by a dog. Just think about it. You're the most talented genius in our class, and this bastard is still in our class at the age of 70 or 80. It's like living a dog. Let's go, today is your birthday. Don't think about these bad things, I'll go celebrate your birthday for you. Although Shui Dongjian is older, he is only 25 years old. In Qiu Zhan's eyes, this guy is already in his 70s and 80s. Okay, let's go. Lan Xiaobu knew that perhaps this was the last meal he had with Qiu Zhan. After this meal, he would spend all his time searching for various martial arts techniques. Then save some money to go to Kunlun Mountain and try to get the UFO in hand before everyone discovers it. As soon as he gets the UFO, he will immediately leave the Earth. No matter what happens, he will never, like Shang Wei, bring back some extraterrestrial powerhouses to Earth in 20 years. When he comes back, it must be that he has that ability. Without that ability, he will leave the UFO permanently in outer space. Nowadays, there is a proliferation of martial arts techniques on Earth, and there are a lot of real and fake ones online. Even the 70.2 unique skills of Shaolin can be downloaded from the Breathing Method website in Wudang. Anyway, it is impossible to cultivate, so regardless of whether it is true or false, it is considered a counterfeit. It was not until a year later that the Earth's vitality increased and various martial arts techniques became popular again. At that time, don't even think about downloading it online. The martial arts of each sect belong to their own sect, and they only recruit the most talented disciples. At that time, even if one wants to enter the worst sect, it is not an easy task. As for wanting to enter the martial arts academy, it is even more difficult. Those who collected various martial arts techniques from various sects in the early days had only two choices. Firstly, you joined a certain sect, and secondly, you were not allowed to spread or practice the techniques you collected. Otherwise, I wouldn't even know how I died. In fact, many people who have collected various martial arts techniques from various sects, even if there is no leakage, are inexplicably missing. Xiaobu, are you dropping out? Qiu Zhan instinctively put down a glass of beer in his hand and looked at Lan Xiaobu in surprise. Lan Xiaobu nodded and said, yes, I plan to drop out of school and go out to make money. Qiu Zhan hurriedly waved his hand and said, Xiaobu, do you know what dropping out means? Those who study medicine are the most popular now. Anyone who graduates from any medical school is a sought-after talent from major hospitals. Now that they are all in their senior year, it will be much easier for you to stay up for another year and find a job outside than you are now. What money can you earn when you go out now? And Qiu Zhan was anxious and didn't say anything for a long time. Lan Xiaobu patted Qiu Zhan's shoulder and said, Chief, I've made a decision. I'll leave after this meal today. Lan Xiaobu naturally wouldn't stay at school to waste time. In his past life, he was admitted to the medical school's youth class and spent 5 years studying. After leaving, he worked as a doctor for 10 to 20 years. His medical talent was already astonishing. After the nuclear war, he spent almost every day undergoing surgery and saving lives, and his medical skills had reached a level that few could surpass. So what if it's like this? No matter how high his medical skills are, he is just acting like a cow or a horse for others, in exchange for the hope of barely surviving for him and Su Xian. In the end, he was sunk into the sea because of studying medicine. Perhaps if he didn't study medicine, he would probably have lost his life before the outbreak of nuclear war. Seeing that Lan Xiaobu was really going to drop out of school, Qiu Zhan could only sigh and stop persuading. Thinking that the best iron rod was about to leave, Qiu Zhan felt a bit depressed as he was the only one at school in the future and couldn't even find someone to talk to. In the end, both of them drank in a daze, and then they helped each other back to school. Please ask for recommended ticket support. Taoists who have not collected it should remember to collect it. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Strange Men. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5 Strange Men, Where's Lan Xiaobu? The next morning, when he arrived at the classroom, Su Tsun's first task was to search for Lan Xiaobu. In her eyes, Lan Xiaobu was actually no different from other classmates in the past. Since she went to search for Lan Xiaobu yesterday and returned, she has had a particularly strange feeling. She even feels like she is married to Lan Xiaobu, although this feeling is too absurd. If she just feels absurd, it's okay, but last night in her dreams, it was all blue cloth. She saw herself and Lan Xiaobu relying on each other in a relatively small city, and she saw herself suffering from a terrible illness. Lan Xiaobu went crazy to undergo surgery day and night, earning the cost of her treatment. She saw Lan Xiaobu, who was only in his 30s, exhausted just like an old man in his 60s or 70s for her. Perhaps her illness had not recovered yet, and Lan Xiaobu had already died of exhaustion on the operating table. She finally couldn't bear it anymore. She struggled and then rushed out of the protective city. What is a protective city? Why did she and Lan Xiaobu hide in the protective city? What is the protection? Suitsun struggled in her sleep, unable to understand. Although it had just entered autumn and was still a bit cold, Suitsun woke up in a cold sweat and couldn't fall asleep in the latter half of the night. She and Lan Xiaobu never had any interaction in the past. Yesterday's incident would have been comforted by other classmates like her class monitor. It's just that this dream is too scary, it's just as scary as the real thing. So when she arrived in class today, her first thing was to search for Blue Xiaobu, even though she didn't know what to do with finding Blue Xiaobu. The earlier classmates in the class were all looking at Suitsun in surprise. What did Suitsun come all morning to find Lan Xiaobu for? The words of the counselor came from the door. Lan Xiaobu has dropped out of school. I was about to ask what's going on. Lan Xiaobu dropped out of school. The whole class was a bit shocked. It's not easy to get into medical school now. I finally got in, and Lan Xiaobu's grades are still very good. Why drop out? Isn't it because Xue Dongjian humiliated Lan Xiaobu yesterday? If that's the case, isn't the blue cloth too fragile? Suitsun was stunned for a while before saying, even if you want to drop out of school, it will take some time to complete the procedures. What about others? The counselor also rubbed his forehead and said, I don't know what's going on. He just sent me a message saying he dropped out of school and didn't ask for any procedures. When I called him again, his phone had already been turned off. Where is the Lan Xiaobu family? Suitsun asked unwillingly. You don't have to go to his house anymore, and he probably won't go back either. You know, Lan Song Group. The counselor doesn't need to go on, everyone knows the origin of Lan Xiaobu. 10 years back in time, the giant conglomerate of China is the Blue Song Group. Unfortunately, such a huge company, for some unknown reason, ultimately caused trouble. The nearly century-old large enterprise disappeared in just 2 years. Except for a few intentional individuals who fled overseas, the rest, except for those who went missing, were imprisoned. The few who are alive may not have been driven crazy by debt. I never expected that Lan Xiaobu would once be the young master of the Blue Song Group. Can the young master of the Blue Song Group still be okay? Regardless of whether Lan Xiaobu is a descendant of the ruler of the Blue Song Group, in the Blue Song Group, anyone with the surname Lan can be called the young master. Lan Xiaobu has already left Haiyang and is sitting on the train to Tingjiang. Tingjiang is the hometown of Lan Xiaobu, where he and his mother lived for 7 years. Until he was admitted to the youth class at Shanghai Yang Medical University, his mother left Tingjiang and never returned. He even thought several times that if he hadn't been admitted to the youth class back then, his mother wouldn't have left Tingjiang. Unfortunately, he was reborn at the age of 18 instead of 14. This time he already has a very clear goal. After taking the UFO, he will not return to Tingjiang, so before leaving, he wants to go back and take a handful of his homeland. Perhaps one day in the future, he will wait for death in the vast space, at least with a handful of his homeland to accompany him. After going to Tingjiang, the place where Lan Xiaobu plans to stay next is Huzhou. Huzhou is a very young city, and it has only been 20 years since its establishment. This is a city that has emerged due to tourism, with a population exceeding 4 million in just 20 years. Lan Xiaobu chose Huzhou mainly because it is close to the Kunlun Mountains, which not only has weak air pollution but also allows him to act at a cheaper price. Due to its proximity to Kunlun, the vitality of heaven and earth in Huzhou will be stronger than in other places a year later. This led to a sharp rise in housing prices in Huzhou a year later, and buying a house here is even more expensive than in coastal cities. It takes 12 hours from Haiyang to Huzhou, and the first thing Lan Xiaobu does when he sits down is to open his old laptop and crazily download various martial arts techniques online. These martial arts techniques must have some truth and some falsehood. Anyway, let's take a look first. In a short period of time, Lan Xiaobu downloaded more than 20 internal qi breathing techniques, including the Yi Jin Jing, Pure Yang Wuji Gong, and 16-section brocade. As for various martial arts, they have formed a large queue in the download queue. Even if it was to spend money downloading, he didn't hesitate to recharge it. A fierce cough on the other side made Lan Xiaobu, who was immersed in searching for various techniques, lift his head. Sitting opposite him was a middle-aged man who was coughing with his mouth covered. Lan Xiaobu sighed and frowned slightly. There are too many lung diseases caused by breathing now. The reason why studying medicine is so popular now is because the sky is so polluted that it is terrifying. Endless dust and mist, there is no more space on earth to breathe freely. Seeing Lan Xiaobu frowning slightly at him, the middle-aged man quickly apologized and said, I'm sorry, I've had an old problem, cough, cough. Lan Xiaobu smiled and said, it's okay. This type of bronchitis and pneumoconiosis caused by dust pollution, Lan Xiaobu has come up with a massage technique himself. It only takes up to 7 times, combined with a few herbs, to cure the other person's disease. However, Lan Xiaobu did not say anything later. The other party cannot believe him, nor can he let them follow him for 7 days. The middle-aged man smiled apologetically again, then took out a mask and put it on. Despite wearing a mask, the middle-aged man occasionally coughs. Previously, Lan Xiaobu was solely searching for various martial arts techniques online, but he did not pay attention to this middle-aged man. At this moment, Lan Xiaobu was letting his computer download, and when he closed his eyes to rest, the other person coughed and Lan Xiaobu felt something was wrong. Quickly, Lan Xiaobu confirmed that this person was having a fake cough. I don't know how many patients he had seen in his previous life, but what symptoms have he not seen? I have seen too many cases of coughing caused by breathing. He could naturally hear this deliberate coughing from time to time. Why should a good person pretend to cough? Lan Xiaobu instinctively glanced at the middle-aged man, feeling a faint sense of malice. In his past life, Lan Xiaobu had seen too much killing and violence, and he was confident that he had read it right. This middle-aged man had an extraordinary background and must have killed someone. Just as he thought of it, the middle-aged man suddenly spoke up and asked, "Are you a student?" Lan Xiaobu smiled and said, "I just graduated and plan to go to Binan to find a job." The place where Lan Xiaobu is going is Huzhou. In order to get a UFO in the Kunlun Mountains, he had no intention of letting anyone know where he was going. The guy in front of him pretended to cough for no reason, and Lan Xiaobu didn't want to talk to him much. Which school graduated from? The middle-aged man continued to ask. After finishing speaking, Lan Xiaobu thought for a moment and added, "My name is Shang Wei, and I graduated from Jincheng University of Technology with a major in physics and electronics." Lan Xiaobu felt that if he didn't speak clearly, the other party would definitely ask again. This was an intuition and experience, and he decided to make his background clear. Shang Wei was the one who found a UFO in his previous life and left Earth with it, ultimately attracting foreign powers and plunging the Earth into the source of disaster. Faced with this seemingly aggressive guy impersonating Shang Wei, Lan Xiaobu felt no apology in his heart. After Lan Xiaobu finished speaking, he was a bit stunned. Shang Wei is a physics and electronics major, and he himself is a medical major. If he needs knowledge of physics and electronics to open that UFO, even if he finds it himself, it will be in vain. Thinking of this, Lan Xiaobu was taken aback. Whether or not that UFO requires knowledge in physics and electronics, he must take advantage of this time to study. The middle-aged man praised, "This major is good, very good. I have something here that I probably need knowledge in physics to study thoroughly. It's not very useful for me to use it. Meeting is fate, so I'll give it to you." As he spoke, the middle-aged man had already taken out an antique wooden box and handed it to Lan Xiaobu. "What does it mean? Do we still have this kind of operation when we meet by chance?" While Lan Xiaobu was still puzzled, the middle-aged man had already stuffed the wooden box into his hand, then closed his eyes and said, "I'll squint for a while, cough. First, I would like to request the support of recommended tickets. Here, I would like to thank many new and old book friends for their tips on new books. For those who have not collected them, please add a bookshelf to collect them. Good night, friends." End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Finding Jobs. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Finding Jobs. The wooden box feels a bit cold when purchased, and it feels a bit heavy with a lot of things inside. This design is like an ancient pavilion. Just as Lan Xiaobu was about to say something, the middle-aged man across from him suddenly stood up. He covered his mouth with his hand and coughed a few times. Seeing him leave his seat, it seemed like he wanted to go to the restroom. "Wait, take out your ID card and ticket to check." The middle-aged man had just left 2 or 3 seats when a sudden voice called out to him. Lan Xiaobu clearly saw that the middle-aged man's body was slightly stiff. Before he could speak, a pistol had already hit the middle-aged man's waist. These are 2 police officers. One of them used a pistol to hold on to the middle-aged man, while the other quickly took out handcuffs and handcuffed him before leaving. Blue Xiaobu quietly put the heavy wooden box into his bag, and then put away his notebook as well. At this moment, he understood why the middle-aged man wanted to inquire about his background. This guy left the wooden box with him, not to give it to him at all, but to let him temporarily keep it. It is estimated that when the middle-aged man comes out of it, the first thing he will do is find him, Lan Xiaobu. It's okay to keep it for a while. Lan Xiaobu suspects that once he returns the item to the middle-aged man, his life can still be saved. This person is full of resentment. As for whether the middle-aged man can come out, Lan Xiaobu has no doubt at all. If the other party cannot come out, they will not give things to themselves as strangers. And with the strength of that middle-aged man, even if the 2 police officers have guns in their hands, they may not be able to keep each other. Unfortunately, even if this guy wanted to break his mind, he wouldn't have thought that a student who met by chance would tell lies, and even his old martial artist didn't feel that Lan Xiaobu was lying. The train entered Xitan, which is a large station. Although it is still far away from Tingjiang Station, Lan Xiaobu did not hesitate to get off and then take a bus directly to Huzhou. He has no plans to go to Tingjiang for the time being. After another day of tinkering, Lan Xiaobu finally arrived in Huzhou. Huzhou is nearly 2,000 kilometers away from the Binan he mentioned, and Lan Xiaobu believes that the middle-aged man did not find him so quickly. The housing prices in Huzhou only skyrocketed after the appearance of UFOs and the rise of the world's vitality. However, the current housing prices are not something that Blue Xiaobu can afford. Lan Xiaobu rented a room in the suburbs at a very cheap price, with a small courtyard for only 500 yuan per month. The landlord went to live in Huzhou City, and the house became vacant. Putting aside the simple salute, Lan Xiaobu didn't go online to search for the martial arts method for the first time, but took out the simple wooden box. The wooden box is not big, only the size of an adult fist, and has a shape like an attic. Lan Xiaobu felt that this wooden box weighed at least 10 pounds. Get it cold and icy, with various patterns carved on the outside. Lan Xiaobu searched around the wooden box for a while, but couldn't find the button to open the box. This wooden box is even more sealed than the Luban box, and there are at least gaps for opening in the Luban box, and this wooden box is a hole. This made Lan Xiaobu doubt whether this wooden box was a decoration. It was not his own thing, and Blue Little Boo didn't feel any pain at all. He placed the wooden box on the cement floor and smashed it down with a stone. A dull sound came out, and there was not even a trace on the wooden box. A stone cannot be struck, and even a knife cannot move it. Lan Xiaobu tossed and turned in the room for an hour or two, but there was nothing he could do with this wooden box. Helpless, he could only put away the wooden box again. The next morning, Lan Xiaobu tidied up briefly and prepared to go to the talent market. He intended to cultivate martial arts, but it was not suitable for him at the moment. According to his memory, it was only a year later that news came out that he could cultivate internal qi. Moreover, he also needs to eat while practicing martial arts, so he must find a job, preferably one that is just a job of waiting to die. Huzhou is an emerging city that is extremely eager for various talents. Like Lan Xiaobu, there are not a few who come specifically from other cities to Huzhou to find a job. In the eyes of many graduates, the current Huzhou is just like the Shanghai Sea in the past. Many of the earliest people who went to Shanghai have now become successful individuals. So the talent market in Huzhou is almost always full. Similarly, because major enterprises have successively established branches in Huzhou, it is relatively easy to find jobs in Huzhou. When Lan Xiaobu arrived at the talent market because he lived in the suburbs, the market at Huzhou Spring Square was already overcrowded. Lan Xiaobu studies medicine and his medical skills are definitely among the top in the world today. However, for Lan Xiaobu, as long as he can find a job, he doesn't care if it's related to medicine. Of course, it would be better to find a profession related to doctors. At this moment, Lan Xiaobu is standing in front of a recruitment booth. Kunhu Hospital is recruiting 3 resident physicians, who are required to have a master's degree in medicine and are not over 35 years old. Those with clinical experience will be given priority, and treatment will be negotiable afterwards. There will be recruitment of specialized leaders or teams, including neurology, neurovascular intervention, nuclear medicine, etc. Lan Xiaobu looked at the handwritten resume in his hand, but he still sat down and handed it to the interviewer wearing glasses in front of him. He'll give it a try, and if it doesn't work, he won't look for a medical job. Haiyang Medical University. A great place. The discovery of lanomycin has helped too many people. The interviewer couldn't help but praise Lan Xiaobu's university. Although he could tell at a glance that Lan Xiaobu didn't meet their criteria, his gaze towards him softened a lot at the moment, indicating a great impression of Haiyang Medical University. Haiyang Medical University ranks among the top 3 medical universities in China. Moreover, even in the world, Haiyang Medical University is well known. In 2039, Haiyang Medical University discovered cyanomycin, an antibiotic that can inhibit or even kill more than 20 types of cancer cells. Since then, cancer has never been treated by chance again. However, Lan Xiaobu knew in his heart that the discovery of lancomycin by Haiyang Medical University had a fatal flaw, which was that after killing cancer cells, it would produce a latent harmful cell that would extremely harm the patient's liver and spleen. It's just that this new cell is very strange. It will lurk for 5 to 7 years and suddenly explode and spread. It is now 2043, which means there is still 1 year left before the blue mold incident erupts, which will become an explosive barrel and ultimately completely destroy Haiyang Medical University, as well as a group of famous doctors. After the problem with lancomycin occurred, Lan Xiaobu also participated in the continued development of lancomycin. Before the outbreak of nuclear war, lancomycin had already been thoroughly improved, eliminating hidden dangers. Lan Xiaobu is very clear about the past of lancomycin. Because Lan Xiaobu comes from Haiyang Medical University, even though she looks too young, the interviewer still has some interest in her handwritten resume. But soon his face became slightly unattractive. He put down his resume and sighed, "You haven't graduated yet." Lan Xiaobu knew it was his own injury, but when asked, he could only say, "Yes, I did not graduate." He doesn't need to say anything about the reason, and the other party doesn't need to listen to him either. He sits here purely by chance, looking for any assistants or positions that do not require staffing. The interviewer tapped on the table with his fingers, and after a while, he said, "You can't enter Kunhu Hospital until you graduate. Although I value you, I have no choice." Not to mention that Lan Xiaobu has not graduated. Even if he has graduated, a fresh student without work experience, even from Haiyang Medical University, is not qualified to enter Kunhu Hospital. As for being optimistic about Lan Xiaobu, that's just a polite remark. Lan Xiaobu knew that the interviewer had a great impression of him, otherwise he wouldn't have talked so much nonsense. With this in mind, Lan Xiaobu stood up and said, "In fact, vancomycin is not perfect. It's best not to let patients receive complete treatment with vancomycin now." This is completely a kind-hearted sentence from Lan Xiaobu. After the outbreak of the sequelae of vancomycin, many doctors became scapegoats. In fact, some people who do not receive injections of cyanomycin cannot persist for a year or two. After living for a few more years, they still pursue high compensation for cyanomycin. If it weren't for the support of the state, Haiyang Medical University would inevitably collapse in this incident. What? Geng heard Lan Xiaobu's words and suddenly stood up, his hands trembling. Geng, representing Kunhu Hospital in this recruitment, is actually looking for some capable doctors for the hospital. He immediately had a great liking for Lan Xiaobu, not only because he came from Haiyang Medical University, but also because he had a pure intuition of being a doctor. Lan Xiaobu has been practicing medicine for 20 years, and has undergone numerous surgeries. If it were done by another doctor, he may not be able to complete them in 70 or 80 years. He is a top-notch doctor. Before leaving, Lan Xiaobu's words were like a thunderbolt hitting his head. Through some clinical trials, he had long felt that there was something wrong with blugilomycin, but the problem was not obvious and had never really occurred. He has raised the issue of cyanomycin more than once, and everyone feels that he is unfounded. Now that Lan Xiaobu has expressed the same opinion as him, how can he calm down? The second update is being sent, and we eagerly request support for recommended tickets. End of this chapter. Chapter 7 is now ready for cultivation, adding more to the madness of the Alliance leader's desperate love. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7 is now ready for cultivation, adding more to the madness of the Alliance leader's desperate love. Lan Xiaobu looked at Geng with confusion, and the trend of vancomycin was now booming, almost reaching its peak. Is it because I said there are some issues with blue mold, and the other party is very angry? It doesn't seem very similar, and even if you say it yourself, there's no need for the other person to be angry. Hello, this is my resume. Seeing that Lan Xiaobu had already moved his seat, a tall and thin man with glasses walked over and handed his resume to Geng. Geng took the resume but looked at Lan Xiaobu and said, "Dr. Lan, I can't leave now. Can we talk when the job fair ends?" Lan Xiaobu hesitated a bit. The job fair is 1 day long, and his time is precious now. Even if he can't find a job, he can't wait here for a day. Seeing Lan Xiaobu hesitating, Geng quickly said, "I am Geng from the emergency department. If you believe me, you can come see me tonight. If you haven't found a job, we can talk again. If it's suitable, I can offer you a non-permanent internship." Geng is well aware that Lan Xiaobu has not graduated from university, and it is almost impossible to find a hospital job. Upon hearing this, Lan Xiaobu said without hesitation, "Okay, I'll go to Kunhu Hospital to see you tonight." Lan Xiaobu also knows in his heart that it is difficult for him to find a job that suits him, and other jobs are not easy unless they are physical labor. So Geng is willing to offer himself an internship, and he naturally agrees. As expected by Lan Xiaobu, after a round trip, he did not find a suitable job for himself. Thinking of Ji Zheng's words, Lan Xiaobusuo gave up on searching for a job and returned to his residence. Most of the techniques in the download queue are almost done, and Lan Xiaobu searched for dozens of diverse techniques to continue downloading from the computer. He himself is studying the I Jing Jing. The I Jing Jing consists of 12 forms, which are practiced by many people, but no one has ever said that one can cultivate internal qi. Lan Xiaobu has nothing to do, put on the first pose, lift both hands forward and close them together, and stop outside the Tanzhong acupoint on the chest. According to Lan Xiaobu's idea, he should first familiarize himself with the cultivation methods. When he has the vitality of heaven and earth, it will save a lot of time. To Lan Xiaobu's surprise, just as he was about to take a breath, a soft breath rose from the small dantian. This is subconsciously, Lan Xiaobu opened his eyes and immediately felt the subtle differences in the world. His mind was incredibly fresh, and dantian seemed to have a powerful force that allowed him to unleash it. Lan Xiaobu raised his hand and punched, which hit him in the air. However, a piece of paper not far from him was picked up by the punch wind. Is this internal qi? Quickly, Lan Xiaobu was certain that he had just cultivated internal energy. Just a little try, and then I cultivated my internal energy. How incredible is one's own qualification. Quickly, Lan Xiaobu understood that the I Jing Jing could be practiced now without waiting for a year. Now that the vitality of heaven and earth has been stimulated, he should be the first to discover. Huzhou is the closest city to Kunlun Mountain. It is possible that due to its proximity to Kunlun Mountain, the vitality of heaven and earth arrived earlier, but Lan Xiaobu remembered his past life. It wasn't until a year later that it was rumored that the earth had the energy of heaven and earth that could be cultivated. What was going on? This kind of thing will never change at all due to his rebirth. The only possibility is that someone in their past life already knew that the vitality between heaven and earth had begun to increase and could even practice. The people who were informed of this news were deliberately hiding it from others until the news could no longer be concealed. Anyway, for Lan Xiaobu, this is a big good thing. He needs to enter Kunlun Mountain before Shangwei, preferably before most people know about the vitality of heaven and earth, and then unknowingly take away the UFO. To enter Kunlun Mountain in advance, it naturally requires a certain level of strength, and his current strength is to seek death. Lan Xiaobu let out a sigh of relief, put aside all his thoughts, and focused on practicing the I Jing Jing. After just a few breaths, Lan Xiaobu was once again immersed in his cultivation. With the circulation of the I Jing Jing in the Zhou Tian, his internal breath was also constantly growing and circulating. Ji Zheng was absent-minded all day today. After waiting for the recruitment to end, he hurriedly returned to the hospital and had to wait for Lan Xiaobu. Since Lan Xiaobu mentioned that lancomycin is not perfect and advised him not to use it for treatment, he has been thinking about talking to Lan Xiaobu about this matter. Until now, only Lan Xiaobu and he have similar ideas since the release of Blue Mold. After returning to the hospital, Ji Zheng didn't even go to eat dinner and waited for Lan Xiaobu in the emergency department. To Ji Zheng's disappointment, he waited until almost 8 o'clock in the evening and did not see anyone with Blue Little Boo. This made Ji Zheng regret not leaving Lan Xiaobu's contact information. At least he should have left Lan Xiaobu's contact information. Wait, who are you looking for? This is the office, and the doctor is across from me. Just as Ji Zheng was feeling anxious, the voice of Nurse Xiao Fu came from outside. Ji Zheng rushed out quickly, and when he saw Lan Xiaobu standing in the hallway, he immediately breathed a long sigh of relief. You finally came. Hurry up, come in. Ji Zheng quickly said. Lan Xiaobu smiled apologetically and said, sorry for being a bit late. He was really obsessed with practicing the I Jing Jing, and it wasn't until after 7 p.m. that he was awakened by hunger. Hurry up and have some food before coming to see Ji Zheng. Where is Ji Zheng still? Is Lan Xiaobu coming early or late? As soon as Geng entered the room, he urgently asked, Lan Xiaobu, you are from Haiyang Medical University. Before, you said that lancomycin was not perfect. Is it a research by a senior at Haiyang Medical University? Even if Lan Xiaobu is from Haiyang Medical University, Geng does not believe that Lan Xiaobu has the ability to study lancomycin. The most likely scenario is that a professor from Haiyang Medical University discovered a problem with cyanomycin and spoke up in class. As long as Lan Xiaobu stays here for an internship, he will eventually have the opportunity to meet the professor who identified the issue with lancomycin. Lan Xiaobu sat down and smiled, saying, no, it's just my own research results. With the help of the school's laboratory and numerous patient case data from patients who have used lancomycin, I finally came to this conclusion. Although lancomycin can inhibit nearly 20 types of cancer cells, it has a fatal drawback, which is that patients who have been injected with lancomycin will survive a new type of harmful cells in their bodies. These new cells are not cancer cells, but they will greatly harm the patient's liver and spleen, and are almost lifeless. Indeed, it hurts the spleen. Geng's hands were trembling, as if muttering to himself, even forgetting to ask Lan Xiaobu how a senior student could research such a top-notch achievement. Lan Xiaobu didn't disturb Geng. At first glance, Geng was the kind of person who was very dedicated to academic research, and I don't know why he was assigned to the emergency department. Based on Lan Xiaobu's speculation, he should have offended the leader, and he has experienced such things before. After a long time, Geng finally regained his composure and looked at Lan Xiaobu, you're only in your senior year. How can you study this kind of problem? And since it's a fatal flaw, why do people who use lancomycin recover well? Lan Xiaobu smiled slightly and said, although I am in my senior year, I have already completed the courses I need to learn. I believe that my medical skills are not inferior to most doctors. Of course, you will not believe it, as long as you can provide me with an internship. As for why people who have used penicillin are recovering well now, it is because the growth cycle of these harmful cells takes 5 to 7 years. After the patient receives the first dose of penicillin, the patient may face death within 5 to 7 years. Geng breathed a sigh of relief and said slowly, Lan Xiaobu, I believe in your research because my research is similar to yours. However, my research is more speculative, and I have not found complete harmful cells, nor have I found any damage to the liver caused by these cells. If we follow your research and speculation, next year will be when there will be a problem with cyanomycin. Lan Xiaobu nodded and said, that's right, there will indeed be big problems next year. Director G, can I stay here to work? It is certain that there is a problem with lancomycin, but compared to nuclear war, the problem with lancomycin is not a big deal in the eyes of Lan Xiaobu. Geng nodded and said, you can stay here for an internship, with a salary of 3,000. Lan Xiaobu frowned, realizing that a salary of 3,000 was not enough for him to live on. Without waiting for Lan Xiaobu to speak up, Geng continued, in addition to salary, there is also a part of the bonus, which can be more or less. It adds up to around 10,000 yuan per month. However, what I want to tell you is that there is no opportunity for you to become a full-time employee during your internship. Secondly, you need to assist me in researching lancomycin. Thirdly, you should not go to see someone for medical treatment, as there is a significant gap between theory and practice. In fact, Geng's main purpose in keeping Lan Xiaobu is only one, which is to assist him in researching the issue of lancomycin. As for the promised salary of 10,000, he intended to give it himself. Deal, Lan Xiaobu clapped his hands and said. His main purpose is not to become a full-time employee, but to survive. Please request support for recommended tickets, monthly tickets, and collection. That's all for today's update. Good night, friends. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Frozen Silkworm Disease. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Chapter 8 Frozen Silkworm Disease. Lan Xiaobu is very satisfied with this kind of work that only takes money without doing anything. He loves it the most, and often he doesn't even need to go to the hospital. The only drawback is that he needs to accompany Geng for 4 hours every day to study cyanomycin. But for him, this is already very good. Except for the 4 hours spent with Geng, almost all of the time was spent by Lan Xiaobu on cultivation. In just 1 month, Lan Xiaobu could clearly feel his inner energy flowing like a small river, and even when stirring up his inner energy, there was a sound of inner energy flowing. Even if he hasn't started practicing his moves yet, at this moment, Lan Xiaobu can easily smash a blue stone the size of a grinding wheel with one punch. Geng was also very satisfied. He found that all his problems could be solved with Lan Xiaobu. Sometimes it's not just a problem with blue mold, even if it's other medical problems, Blue Xiaobu can still help him solve them. He increasingly felt that what Lan Xiaobu was saying was true, and his medical skills would not be lower than most doctors. Because Lan Xiaobu came to him for an internship on his own, he dare not let him see a doctor clinically, otherwise he believes that Lan Xiaobu will do well. It can be said that if a professor knows about Lan Xiaobu's ability, not to mention 10,000 a month, even if it's 100,000 a month, they are still vying for someone to hire Lan Xiaobu as an assistant. Because of Lan Xiaobu's strength, Geng didn't care at all about him coming and going whenever he wanted. In just half a month, he not only gained a clearer understanding of the sequelae of cyanomycin, but also had clear data as a reference. Geng calculated the date and decided to publish a paper on the harmful cells of cyanomycin at the end of the month. This paper is attributed to Lan Xiaobu, and he plans to sign his name as well. In the emergency department, Lan Xiaobu not only helped Geng, but also did not cause any trouble, and had never seen a patient in the emergency department. It's not that Lan Xiaobu doesn't look good, nor is it because he's worried about not having the qualifications to practice medicine, but because he has seen too much life and death. For Lan Xiaobu, the most important thing is the UFO deep in the Kunlun Mountains. So besides practicing, Lan Xiaobu is also self-learning various knowledge related to physics and electronics. In room 811 of Binan Siya Hotel, a middle-aged man sat at a table with an extremely gloomy face. He was deceived by a young boy who seemed to have not yet left the campus. Since Cheng Jianjia's debut, who hasn't seen him before? I have encountered countless things, but I fell into the hands of a little furry guy. He was certain that the student who claimed to be Shang Wei did not have any lying eyes or movements when talking to him, but unfortunately, the other person lied. After coming to Binan, his first thing was to look for Shang Wei. With his energy, not to mention a college graduate coming to Binan, even if it's an ant coming to Binan, he has a way to find that ant. In fact, there hasn't been a college student named Shang Wei on Binan Big Data recently. There are several Shang Wei, but none of them are what he is looking for. No need to think about it, it can be certain that the identity that the kid mentioned about Jincheng University of Technology is also fake. Cheng Jianjia frowned and was thinking about the next step of searching when his phone rang. The phone was answered, and a crisp female voice came in, "Chenggu, I found it. There is a classmate named Shang Wei at Jincheng University of Technology, who is a 40-year student majoring in physics and electronics." What? Is Shang Wei really at Jincheng University of Technology? Cheng Jianjia exclaimed in surprise, marking another mistake in his judgment. Previously, he did not find anyone in Binan and immediately determined that the identity of Jincheng University of Technology reported by Lan Xiaobu was also fake. What he didn't expect was that this identity was actually real. Yes, Brother Cheng, Shang Wei is indeed from Jincheng University of Technology, and he is also a top student. The answer came over the phone. Cheng Jianjia took a breath and tried to calm his emotions, asking, when did Shang Wei leave Jincheng University of Technology? Where did he go? Where is his home? Do you have a contact number? Ah. A surprised voice came over the phone, and then the woman's voice came again. Shang Wei hasn't left Jincheng University of Technology. I've confirmed that he's still at school, and his home is in Jincheng, with contact information available. Additionally, the merchant claims to be the first in Jincheng, not only in Jincheng but also in China, with enough influence. A bad premonition came, and Cheng Jianjia's hands trembled slightly. He must not lose what he had desperately obtained. Can you help me make an appointment with Shang Wei? I will be in Jincheng today and I want to see him tonight. Cheng Jianjia hastily responded and immediately hung up the phone to start buying a plane ticket. Even if the merchant is strong, don't try to use him to become Jianjia. The merchants are powerful, and the crocodile gang is not a vegetarian either. Lan Xiaobu walked out of Ji Zheng's laboratory and completed the task of helping him today. The next step is to quickly return to practice. He hadn't even walked to the emergency department when he saw a group of people gathered together, with cries coming from inside. Lan Xiaobu sighed. This kind of thing can be seen in the hospital every day, and it's not something he can manage. Director Xing, please, Xiaoman can't live without legs. Without legs, she won't be able to survive. A middle-aged woman knelt on the ground with pleading, her hands still holding the left leg of a middle-aged doctor. Although Lan Xiaobu has only been at Kunhu Hospital for over a month and has never cared about anything, he still knows who that middle-aged doctor is. Xing Yigeng, an orthopedic expert at Kunhu Hospital, has sent many orthopedic patients who have not received good treatment from other places to Kunhu Hospital. It's not because Kunhu Hospital is so powerful, but because Kunhu Hospital has one of the best orthopedic experts, Xing Yigeng. Xing Yigeng bent down to lift the middle-aged woman, but she was almost prostrate on the ground and kept kowtowing, but he couldn't lift her. With a sigh, Xing Yigeng could only say, "Sister, if I had any solution, I wouldn't have let such a blooming girl amputate. I am a doctor and cannot save the patient. I feel the same discomfort in my heart. She has frozen silkworm disease, and now all her leg bones are necrotic. If the amputation is delayed, it may even affect." The people around began to persuade the middle-aged woman, and a few helped her up. Xing Yigeng sighed again, shook his head, and quickly turned around to leave. He has encountered many such things, but every time he feels the same discomfort in his heart, he hates his limited abilities. It is also because of his temperament that his medical skills continue to improve, and now he is almost the top orthopedic expert in the country. Even so, there are still many patients he cannot treat. He cannot treat frozen silkworm disease. Not only is he unable to treat it, but there is currently no doctor in the world who can truly treat frozen silkworm disease. Lan Xiaobu shook his head and saw a young girl lying on the hospital bed from afar, and 16 or 17 years old. There was a deathly despair in his eyes, and that gaze reminded him of Su Xian. Lan Xiaobu knew that even if Dr. Xing amputated the girl, she would not live any longer. He was too familiar with that desperate look in his eyes. When Su Tsun was about to leave, it was this desperate look in his eyes. Blue Xiaobu, who had originally wanted to leave the hospital, stood quietly in the corner. He looked at the helpless mother and daughter with an unusual sadness in his heart. He can treat frozen silkworm disease, but even if he wants to help, he is not qualified to do so. If someone finds out that he, as an intern doctor, dares to perform surgery casually, it may not only be him, Lan Xiaobu, but also Ji Zheng, who will be implicated in the problem. The crowd slowly dispersed, leaving only the nurse pushing the hospital bed and the helpless mother and daughter. "Sister Shu, let's go to the ward first. Don't think too much, Xiaoman can eventually get better." The nurse's words seemed a bit pale and powerless. The middle-aged woman still stared blankly at the direction of Xing Yigeng's departure. The only sentence in her mind was the words of the attending physician before her transfer: "If there is anyone in China who can cure Xiaoman's leg, then only Dr. Xing Yigeng." For Dr. Xing, he definitely didn't see clearly just now. He must have looked again. Her eyes sparkled as she grabbed the nurse beside her and said, "Can you help me call Dr. Xing again?" I'm sure he didn't see clearly just now. It must be like this. As long as you ask Dr. Sheng to take another look, maybe he will find a better way. The nurse beside her showed a puzzled expression on her face. Xu Jie, Xiaoman's films have all been taken, and all the laboratory data is very clear. Dr. Sheng should not have misread them. Let me talk about the update time. Starting from tomorrow, the daily 2 shifts are 18.00 and 21.00. The leader adds 3 shifts a week, and the leader updates a chapter at noon. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Refining and Refining Qi. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Refining and Refining Qi. The woman named Xu hesitated and murmured to herself, not knowing what she was saying. After a full year or 2 minutes, she lifted her head and searched around. When her gaze fell on Lan Xiaobu, it was as if she had grabbed a life-saving straw and hurriedly ran towards him. Xu Jie, he's an intern doctor. The nurse saw the intern doctor's coat on Lan Xiaobu's body and quickly called out from behind. However, at this point, Sister Xu can no longer afford any internships. The only one who can wear a white coat is the doctor who saved her daughter. Although Lan Xiaobu's gaze fell on Xiaoman, his thoughts had already transcended time and space, and what appeared before him was the appearance of Su Tsun when he left. It's so helpless, so sad. Unfortunately, although he is Su Tsun's husband, he cannot accompany Su Tsun in heart-to-heart talks, untie her deep-seated worries, bring her happiness, and cannot save Su Tsun's life. The only thing I can do is to practice medicine crazily and earn money to buy expensive life-saving drugs. At first, when his medical skills were average, he didn't make much money. When his medical skills become stronger, the price of life-saving drugs will also become sky-high. After the nuclear war, facing the exorbitant cost of life-saving drugs, even with his crazy surgery, he still couldn't even barely make it. Doctor. Xu Jie's call pulled Lan Xiaobu out of her memory. Please help me find Director Sheng and ask him to help Xiaoman take a look. Maybe he hasn't seen it clearly there. Lan Xiaobu's gaze withdrew from the girl on the hospital bed. He looked at Xu Jie in front of him and tried to slow down his tone, saying, Director Sheng must be telling the truth. He can't save your daughter Xiaoman. Xu Jie's hand shook. Knowing that Lan Xiaobu had not deceived him, she still didn't know what to do next. Lan Xiaobu suddenly said again, Xu Jie, if you believe me, I can help Xiaoman take a look. Ah. Xu Jie didn't react at first, and then she woke up to what Lan Xiaobu had said. She eagerly grabbed Lan Xiaobu and called out, Believe it, I believe you. Please help my little man take a look, please. Lan Xiaobu patted Xu Jie's hand and gestured for her to let go before walking to Xiaoman's side. He lifted the blanket and pinched Xiaoman's already blue and purple legs a few times. Seeing that Lan Xiaobu only pinched his legs a few times before retracting his hand again, it was indeed frozen silkworm disease. Xu Jie looked nervously at Lan Xiaobu, longing for him to say the words, can save, in his mouth. Lan Xiaobu remained silent and took the initiative to step aside. Upon seeing this, Xu Jie quickly followed over. When Lan Xiaobu saw Xu coming over, he said, Xiaoman's illness can be treated. But my medical skills are inherited and many methods are not recognized, so I cannot practice medicine in the hospital. I will give you an address and the drugs and equipment that need to be purchased. If you want me to help Xiaoman see a doctor, go to this address and buy all the things I need. Remember, don't let anyone know. If others know, I cannot save your daughter Xiaoman. After saying that, Lan Xiaobu immediately took out the pen on the white coat and wrote down on the blank prescription paper articles including scalpels, acupuncture and moxibustion, scissors, tweezers, disinfectant cotton, various injections, medicinal materials and so on. Then she stuffed the prescription note into Xu Jie's hand and quickly left. His residence does not have a sterile operating room, but he has treated too much frozen silkworm disease, which is not a difficult task for him, and his method is different from regular surgery. Until Lan Xiaobu disappeared, Xu Jia finally woke up. She looked at the prescription note in her hand, feeling a bit confused and at a loss. She is also studying medicine, and the items on this list seem to make her feel that Lan Xiaobu's medical skills are very average. The model and type of scalpel, forceps, acupuncture and moxibustion and other instruments were not specified. You should know that there are dozens of different types of pliers with just one, and the list given to her by Lan Xiaobu only includes medical pliers. What made Xu even more uneasy was that besides a pile of injectable drugs, there was also a pile of traditional Chinese medicine on top of it. Is this going to be for Xiaoman's surgery, or is it going to be for Xiaoman to take traditional Chinese medicine? There is an address on the prescription, but can she take her daughter out of the hospital and go to this unfamiliar place to see her doctor? Looking at the order opened by Lan Xiaobu again, it seems like a scammer, but the other party clearly did not want to explain too much to her. Sister Xu, let's take Xiaoman to the ward first. Director Xing must have gone back and found a solution. Even though she knew Director Xing had no choice, the nurse still came to comfort Sister Xu. Xu quickly put away the prescription and nodded. What can a scammer deceive her? Moreover, the other party is clearly a doctor from Kunhu Hospital, and the intern doctor is also a doctor. The doctor also said that it is an ancestral medical skill, and he cannot practice medicine here because many medical skills are not recognized. With this in mind, Sister Xu made up her mind to collect everything today, no matter what, and then take Xiaoman to take a look tomorrow. She has nowhere else to go, and if no one saves Xiaoman, he will definitely die. My daughter has a will to die, how can she not be clear about it? At Jincheng University of Technology, Cheng Jianjia looked at Shang Wei standing in front of him, knowing that he had been completely tricked. The person in front of him, Shang Wei, was obviously not the one he was looking for, and that student had deceived him again. A hint of malice flashed in Cheng Jianjia's eyes, as he clenched his hands and his intention to kill surged in his heart. If the kid who deceived him is caught, he will make that kid regret coming into this world. And he must catch that kid. That wooden box belongs to him, no one can take it. Standing in front of Cheng Jianjia, Shang Wei felt waves of coldness, and he instinctively shuddered. Who is this person, so terrible? He doesn't seem to know this person. Cheng Jianjia took out a hand portrait from his pocket, which was already 7 points similar to Blue Xiaobu. He has already gone to investigate the station where Lan Xiaobu got on the bus. As long as he finds the station where Lan Xiaobu got on, he can find his photo and his true origin. Do you know this person? Cheng Jianjia's tone was somewhat cold. Although Shang Wei felt uncomfortable in his heart, he also had some fear of Cheng Jianjia. His gaze fell on the portrait of Lan Xiaobu for a while before shaking his head and saying, I don't know. Shang Wei's words disappointed Cheng Jianjia very much. He put away the portrait and nodded at Shang Wei, you can leave now, but I didn't allow a single word to be revealed in my question just now. Otherwise, you won't be able to bear the consequences. Looking at Cheng Jianjia's distant figure, Shang Wei remained inexplicable. An inexplicable person or thing. Cheng Jianjia's phone vibrated and a message appeared on his phone, this train ticket belongs to Lan Xiaobu, with a departure point in Haiyang City and a destination in Tingjiang. In addition to practicing the Yi Jin Jing, Lan Xiaobu also began practicing the Guangming Fist. Legend has it that this is Wudang boxing, belonging to the Neijia boxing. If you don't cultivate inner qi, practicing Guangming Fist is a joke. Now that Lan Xiaobu has a certain foundation in internal qi cultivation, it is appropriate to cultivate Guangming Fist at this time. In his past life, Lan Xiaobu had never practiced martial arts, but he had heard that before the earth's vitality erupted, the strongest martial arts could cultivate internal qi. A martial artist who cultivates internal energy is also known as an internal energy martial artist. Except for those who possess inner strength and martial arts skills, all others are represented by 3 characters. If you have practiced martial arts, you will either know it twice. In fact, Before the outbreak of Earth's vitality, there were very few internal strength warriors who were rumored to be big shots, which ordinary people would not see. After the Earth's energy burst, the division of martial arts became more detailed. As long as internal chi is cultivated, it can be called the quenching strength section. After quenching strength, it is called forging bone, followed by the tongmai section. Overcoming the tongmai section is the innate realm. It is rumored that Shang Wei entered the innate realm in order to enter the depths of the Kunlun Mountains safely. But Lan Xiaobu also heard of another realm, which is that all innate realms belong to refining essence and transforming chi. And congenital can also be called building foundation directly instead of congenital. After the outbreak of nuclear war on Earth, he once treated an old man surnamed Huang for his illness. Refining essence and transforming chi was what the old man told him. Unfortunately, he was unable to save the old man. Lan Xiaobu estimated that he has now developed internal chi through cultivation, and should have barely stepped into the quenching stage of refining and refining chi. Although Lan Xiaobu is not sure about his martial arts training qualifications, according to his first day of practicing the Yi Jin Jing, he felt the internal energy. His qualifications should not be too bad, and can even be said to be very good. If this continues, he should also be able to step into the innate world within 2 years. Of course, he cannot wait for 2 years. As long as he reaches his cultivation level soon, he will enter Kunlun Mountain and cannot wait until Kunlun Mountain is sealed off. If you're a Taoist collector, just click on your collection. That's all for today's update. Good night, friends. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. The choice with no way to go, add Geng to the alliance leader Eagle Edge Emperor. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. The choice with no way to go, add Geng to the alliance leader Eagle Edge Emperor. After Xing Yigeng returned home, his mood was not very good. It's not the first time he has encountered a situation like Xiaoman's, but he doesn't have any better means besides amputation, which is a kind of sadness and irony for him, an orthopedic doctor. He is already working hard to improve his medical skills, but with the vastness of medical knowledge, the more he learns, the less he feels about it. The next day, Xing Yigeng returned to the hospital again and went directly to Xiaoman's ward. He was well aware that Xiaoman's situation was becoming more and more unfavorable, and now the amputation is estimated to only need to reach the knee. If dragged on, it is very likely that the entire thigh will be scrapped. As soon as Xing Yigeng arrived at the hospital, he saw Xiaoman processing the discharge procedures. He urgently stopped him and said, "Sister Xu, how did you handle Xiaoman's discharge? Xiaoman's legs can't be dragged any longer." Xu sighed and said, "Dr. Xing, can you not help Xiaoman amputate?" Xing Yigeng's expression froze. At his current level, he couldn't do it without helping Xiaoman amputate. But he can't do it, and others can't do it either. "Thank you, Dr. Xing. Xiaoman cannot have an amputation." Xu Jie's eyes turned a bit dark, and she stayed up all night. Finally, she decided to take a gamble and have a look. Xing Yigeng's tone was somewhat anxious. "Xu Jie, although I dare not say how strong I am in the orthopedics department, you are now discharged from the hospital and there is no way to find a better orthopedic expert in the short term." He didn't need to say these words, as a doctor, he still couldn't go against his conscience. Xu didn't speak, just bowed to Xing Yigeng and slowly pushed Xiaoman's wheelchair away. She knows better than anyone that amputation means death to Xiaoman. So no matter what, she cannot let Xiaoman die. Dr. Xing, Sister Xu said she wants to transfer to another hospital and seems to have purchased many medicines and medical equipment, some of which are still being asked for my help to purchase. The nurse who has been taking care of Xiaoman walked over, unsure of what Sister Xu plans to do, but she had no control over these things. Transfer. Xing Yigeng looked at Xu Jie who had gone away in confusion. Kunhu Hospital is the best hospital in several nearby cities. Where can I transfer to? Lan Xiaobu had just finished his Guanming fist when he saw a taxi parked outside. As soon as the taxi door opened, he saw Xu Jie. "Did you really come over?" He thought that Xu Jie had realized afterwards that she shouldn't have come over. Because of this kind of thing, as long as one's thinking is normal, they will not believe it. Xu Jie really came over, which means she should also see the determination in her daughter Xiaoman's eyes. Coming to his place, there is really no way to go. I estimate that since her daughter Xiaoman got frozen silkworm disease, I have been the only doctor who promised to treat Xiaoman's illness. Sister Xu, Lan Xiaobu called out and quickly stepped forward to help. Taking out the cart and opening it, Lan Xiaobu lifted Xiaoman onto the cart. Xiaoman is like a puppet, with the same expression on her face whether she gets off the car or onto a wheelchair. "Doctor, I don't know how to address you yet." Xu Jie's eyes were all uneasy, although she was asking about Lan Xiaobu's address, her eyes were worried about Xiaoman. She was really at a loss. Even if a beggar on the roadside said she could save her daughter, she would probably choose to believe it at this time. "Just call me Dr. Lan, have you bought everything?" Lan Xiaobu didn't care about Xu Jie's attitude, just asked. "I've bought everything." Xu quickly picked up a large mop box next to her. Lan Xiaobu nodded and took the initiative to take the suitcase, saying, "You push Xiaoman in, and we will start treating Xiaoman now." The house where Lan Xiaobu lives is not big, but very bright. "Dr. Lan, should I go to the hospital to find an operating room?" Xu Jie walked into Lan Xiaobu's room, feeling even more uneasy. Although the house is tidy, there is nothing here. Lan Xiaobu waved his hand and said, "No need, just stay here. I'll see if you can help me later. Don't worry, I've done too many surgeries like this." There are surveillance cameras everywhere in the hospital, and Lan Xiaobu dare not perform such surgery in the hospital. Sister Xu really wants to say that once there is a problem with the surgery, Xiaoman will definitely not survive. But she was also worried that after Lan Xiaobu listened to her words, he would no longer treat Xiaoman. Lan Xiaobu has been practicing medicine for decades, and naturally understands Xu Jie's feelings. He didn't say much, just took out a clean sheet and placed it on the bed, then carried Xiaoman to bed. "Dr. Lan." Xu couldn't help but feel too worried in her heart. Lan Xiaobu waved his hand to Xu Jie, gesturing for her not to speak, and then opened the suitcase and set it aside. The drugs and medical equipment in the tow box are neatly arranged and classified very clearly, as if worried that the blue cloth may confuse them. Perhaps she hadn't thought about how to treat her daughter's illness if Lan Xiaobu even mixed up these things. Lan Xiaobu just asked Xu Jie to prepare straight vascular forceps, but here there are not only straight vascular forceps, but also various types of scissors including curved vascular forceps, right-angle forceps, cloth towel forceps, and even kiki forceps. The surgical knife is even more complete. Acupuncture and moxibustion is thick, thin, long and short. Xu Jie, why are there so many? Lan Xiaobu looked at Xu Jie in confusion, and with his medical skills, he didn't need so many tools at all. For Xiaoman's legs, the most important method is cell transplantation and regeneration, which is achieved through medicinal herbs. Upon hearing Lan Xiaobu's question, Xu Jie's eyes were somewhat worried. She continued, "I am also a medical student and I am worried that there may be some omissions in my hurry, so I have prepared more." "I almost didn't say directly that you were not fully prepared." Lan Xiaobu nodded and said to Xu Jie, "I'll take some medicine first. Wait a moment, if you feel anxious, just rub Xiaoman's legs." Although Xu Jie had countless questions to ask Lan Xiaobu and too many doubts to raise, she dared not. She was constantly worried that the only doctor who promised to save Xiaoman would not be willing to treat her. Time slowly passed, and besides the anxiousness of waiting, the air was also filled with the smell of traditional Chinese medicine. In just over an hour, Lan Xiaobu picked up the dried Chinese medicine and placed it in a nearby basin, pounding it with a washed stone. As she watched the traditional Chinese medicine gradually turn into a medicinal slurry, Xu frowned and couldn't help but ask, "Isn't this medicine for drinking?" And it only lasted for over an hour, so. Lan Xiaobu waved his hand and said, "Don't worry, you don't need to drink this medicine. Drinking it will have no effect. This medicine is applied and can promote muscle growth." After a long time, the blue cloth tamped the Chinese medicine, wrapped it with sterilized cloth and put it aside, then picked up acupuncture and moxibustion. Sister Shu's heart became increasingly nervous. "Is it time to start the surgery?" Xiaoman still looked at the roof in confusion, with no vitality in her eyes. Lan Xiaobu tried to slow down his tone and said, "Xiaoman, I have treated patients who are more serious than you before, and they have all recovered very well. I'm not trying to comfort you with something nice, but because I really have this ability. So I hope you need to match me for the next treatment. If you still have this self-destructive attitude, I can't do anything about it." Upon hearing Lan Xiaobu's words, Xu Jie's eyes lit up slightly. She had heard a professor's lecture that if a patient loses the idea of life, the success of any surgery will decrease by 80%. If Lan Xiaobu says this before the surgery, then it is very likely that this doctor has some ability. Upon hearing Lan Xiaobu's words, Xiaoman's eyes visibly showed a hint of vitality, revealing an extreme longing. Lan Xiaobu said again, "Don't worry, so far no one can master my surgical principle. I am the only one in the world who can master this method. If it weren't for some reason, I wouldn't have come to perform the surgery for you. Thank you, Dr. Lan." Xiaoman's eyes finally moved, and she even whispered a word of gratitude. Xu Jie's eyes turned red when she heard Xiaoman's words. Since learning that she would be amputated, Xiaoman has never said a word. I would like to inquire about monthly tickets and recommendations. End of this chapter.